What can impact rents? Well, think about antitrust law and algorithmic pricing. This could be in play in Washington, D.C. with a lawsuit. Now, you might think that antitrust law is just a bunch of complicated legal mumbo jumbo that's only lawyers are going to care about, and that algorithmic pricing is just a fancy way of saying computers decide how much things should cost. But what if I told you that these two things are actually pretty relevant to our lives, and it can affect how much you pay for stuff like gas, groceries, Netflix, and your apartment? We can use some examples that were given by a speech from Commissioner Maureen Olthausen of the Federal Trade Commission back in 2017. Now, the commissioner's speech was called, "Should We Fear the Things That Go Beep in the Night?" Some initial thoughts on the intersection of antitrust law and algorithmic pricing. This sounds like so much fun, right? In this speech, she explained how antitrust law works and how it applies to different scenarios that involve algorithmic pricing. Antitrust law is a set of rules that stop businesses from engaging in unfair or anti-competitive practices that harm consumers or other businesses. Think about antitrust law prohibiting businesses from forming cartels. These are agreements among competitors to fix prices or divide markets. Antitrust law also stops businesses from abusing their market power. That's the ability to control or exclude competitors from jumping into a market. One of the examples that the commissioner used to illustrate antitrust law was a hypothetical small town in a rural area that's got 3 gas stations with no other gas stations within 150 miles in any direction. For a whole bunch of years, the 3 gas station owners observed each other, and they charged virtually identical prices for a gallon of gasoline. Prices would go up and down as the wholesale price of gasoline moved, but all 3 of these gas stations generally charged the same price. Now, one day, the owner of the first gas station decides to raise his price by 5 cents more per gallon than the prices of the other 2 gas stations. And then those 2 other gas station owners decide to follow suit. They see the price on the sign. Now, you might think this is a clear case of price fixing, which could be illegal, but the commissioner explained that under this situation, there'd be no violation of antitrust law as long as the gas station owners each act independently. In other words, as long as they don't communicate with each other or agree to raise their prices together, they were free to set their prices based on all of the information that's legally available to them. And that's because antitrust law doesn't stop businesses from charging high prices or matching competitors' prices. It only stops businesses from colluding with each other or engaging in other anti-competitive conduct. So I can't reach out to the 2 other gas station owners and say, "Hey guys, let's charge 50 cents more," and collude with them. Now, using the same gas station example, the commissioner also explained her views on the use of a complex algorithm by a single firm to observe various market conditions and set prices nearly instantaneously in response to changes in the market. Like, think about one of the gas station owners deciding to replace their human cashier with a computer that could use an algorithm to determine the price of gas based on factors like supply and demand, weather conditions, traffic conditions, and competitor behavior. That computer could monitor all this stuff constantly and adjust the price up or down. And you might think this is a clever way of maximizing profits and gaining an edge over competitors. But the commissioner looked at this and explained that this would not violate antitrust law either. In fact, she compared this scenario to using binoculars to observe the prices of the other gas stations from each other's offices. The binoculars make it easy for you to understand what your competitor is doing, to see the market conditions more quickly and respond accordingly to it. Now, that algorithm makes it easier for the firm to understand market conditions more quickly and then respond. That's fine. The commissioner argued that antitrust law shouldn't be used to police firms' abilities to understand the market that they operate in or to optimize prices. The use of binoculars or algorithms shouldn't be banned because they can help in conscious parallelism. That's where firms independently adopt similar pricing strategies based on market conditions. This conscious parallelism isn't illegal under antitrust law unless there's evidence of collusion or coordination among competitors. Now, unilateral efforts to better understand market conditions and respond accordingly to them, that's an important part of a well-functioning economy. The commissioner used another example to explain her views on hub and spoke agreements, where a whole bunch of firms are competing with each other and they employ a common algorithm to determine prices. This second hypothetical involves a group of competitors who subcontracted their pricing decisions to a common outside vendor that provided algorithmic pricing services. Each firm communicated its pricing strategy to the vendor, which then programmed its algorithm to reflect the firm's pricing strategy. But because the same outside vendor now had confidential price strategy information from a whole bunch of competitors, it could program its algorithm to maximize industry-wide pricing. In effect, The firms themselves don't share their pricing strategies, but that information still ended up in common hands. And that information was then used to maximize market-wide prices. Now, you might think that this is a sneaky way of forming a cartel without directly communicating with each other. And the commissioner agrees with you. She explained that this scenario would violate antitrust law, and it was a classic example of a hub-and-spoke conspiracy. Now, a hub-and-spoke conspiracy is where a whole bunch of competitors use an intermediary to facilitate the exchange of confidential business information or coordinate their pricing strategies. The intermediary acts like the hub of the wheel, and your competitors are there as the spokes, like a bike wheel. Exchange or the coordination among the spokes acts like the rim of the wheel. The commissioner argued that antitrust law does not allow competitors to exchange competitively sensitive information directly or indirectly in an effort to stabilize or control industry pricing. She also argued that antitrust law doesn't allow competitors to outsource their pricing decisions to a common vendor who could then manipulate the market in their favor. She said that these practices would harm consumer and other businesses by reducing competition and increasing prices. So what can you learn? Well, antitrust law and algorithmic pricing is not that boring. It's actually pretty cool. And there's a bunch of stuff that can kind of impact you, whether we're looking at the price of rents or the price of gasoline.